Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Rule 34 podcast, season 2. I'm your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co hosts.
Dominic Castillo.
Alright, so it's been a while. How have you been, Dom?
I have been pretty good. Nothing much has happened once more. School, we're nearing up the end of school, so the end of the term has come upon us. I think for me, school ends like on the 11th of May. So, and we're already halfway through April, so we're very close. We're very close. But yeah, these days it's been pretty okay. We're already feeling a little bit of the summer heat hit us. It's been pretty hot outside these days. But aside from that, nothing much different has been going on. How about you, Jack? How have you been?
I've been doing pretty good. Nothing much really happening. Same as you, just getting a lot of work done that I need to get done, preparations for things, Been doing a lot of reading. Been working out lately,
Nice.
But other than that, I don't think I've been doing much. And then, oh, Dom.
Yes.
Did you see the news that Kendrick Lamar is finally coming out with an album after, I want to say, 5 years?
I think it might have been 5 years or 6 years. I'm not too sure. Was it 2016?
2017, I think.
2017 when he released Damn, right?
Yeah.
Man, has it been long.
We went through all of high school, and now we're 2 years into college, and now we're getting a Kendrick Lamar album after that amount of time.
That is pretty crazy. That is.
Halfway through college before we got another Kendrick Lamar album.
That's true.
You're gonna finish your second, or we're gonna finish our second year by the time that album drops, because it drops like May 15th or something like that.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, what are your expectations for it?
I hope that it provides some absolute bangers. I mean, knowing Kendrick and listening to his discography throughout the years, especially with To Pimp a Butterfly, I have a good feeling about this album because he takes time, right? He doesn't just develop a new album every year, every 2 years. He actually puts in the work to somehow implement like deep and meaningful messages into his songs. And I feel like that's the thing though. These large breaks, I'm not sure if they could be always considered as a break or as literally all the time it actually took him to make an album. Or what do you think, Jeff? Do you think all the time that it takes for the length of time it takes for each album to come out is configured into either time to lay off or time to actually make an album?
I want to say it's like a mix of both, and I'm not taking the easy way up at Saints Row because I have like a reasoning for it. It's like, so they release the album, and then they probably take about a year of doing touring stuff, which means they aren't like in the studio recording stuff because they're gonna be like traveling all across the country, even different countries for a tour,
Right.
They could have some performances at award shows here and there. I think, someone like Kendrick is probably still like, writing and thinking up ideas for songs or like overall albums during that time. But, he's not putting his full effort during that time,
True.
I don't know how long he toured when he released Damn, but I'm going to say maybe he did it for like a year and a half or so, So, he probably had that. And then like after that, remember he kind of like typical Kendrick, he dipped off the face of the planet.
Right.
And like from that point on, I think that's when he started really getting into the album like process of it all, like thinking, what exactly do I want to talk about on this album? What themes do I want to touch on? what overarching themes do I want to show throughout the album, you know. And he was probably even maybe looking at songs that he had previously recorded and said, okay, well, do any of these fit on this album? Can I see any of them fitting, you know, the sound I'm going for, the tone I'm going for, the overall message I'm trying to portray, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's all of it, but I do think like a good portion of these 5 years Kendrick was probably making this album, because he puts like a pretty decent amount of time between his album releases, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I think Good Kid, Mad City came out in... What year did it come out in? 2012. Okay, it came out in 2012. And then To Pimp a Butterfly came out in 2015, if I remember correctly. And then you mentioned Damn came out in 2017. So, you know, that's pretty sizable time between his releases, you know?
Yeah.
Very different from the current age.
Isn't this also... I'm not sure. Have you seen the Twitter... the Twitter post of him, like, announcing? Or I think there was on Instagram, too. But I think he has, like, this sort of... Like, the way he announced it was, like, through some, like, sort of letter, right? Or something?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if it also mentioned... I've not checked if there was anything new on the website. Because he also had the website on. But I think it might have also mentioned that this was his last album. Or something. I'm not sure if I'm correct on that. I have to fact check myself. But... Oh, wait, I have it right. Give me one second. One second. Ooh.
I think...
Okay, so yeah, it might be his last one.
I think it might be his last one with Top Dog Entertainment.
Oh.
Because he's leaving, and I think presumably to start his own record label. Like, that's at least what I originally heard. Because he announced back, like, earlier this year, I believe, that he was leaving Top Dog Entertainment, remember?
Oh, yeah, okay, no, yeah, you're right. My bad. Yeah, I see, right.
Yeah, so he's leaving his record label that he's been with forever, you know, and I mean, it's presumed that he's going to start his own.
Right,
but I mean... if he starts his own.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised either, but, like, considering his success with this group, why would you want to leave, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess pursue your own to make, you know, I guess to be the you know, the top dog in his own ruling, I guess, but, like, you know, if it's not broken, then why make something new?
Yeah, I get you.
But I mean, hey, you know, if that's the way he wants to go, you know, I 100% support it. But aside from that, I mean, I just hope, you know, the guy makes an absolute banger of an album. I'm not sure what he's gonna make. I'm not sure if there's have been any leaks of the album yet. I'm pretty sure some people might have already gotten a hold of it. Maybe people who like been working with him are just, you know, release snippets here and there, or just you know, release the entire album on some sort of like you know, Dropbox link or something. But yeah, who knows? Do you think it's gonna be a couple, you know, a banger for this year?
I mean, he has to, you know, with this amount of time that he's put in between releases, you know.
Yeah.
Because, like, I mean, it's difficult because I think we touched on it a bit, but, you know, a lot of people nowadays, you know, they rarely, if ever, give music the time, you know?
Right.
Like how I brought up to you, know, it's like, of course people are gonna love all the old music that certain artists gave them, because it's like they've had all these years with it, you know?
Yeah.
So, like, obviously it's like it's gonna take some time for newer music to resonate with you. Well, I feel like Kendrick is one of those artists that's like, it's an instant classic for the most part, you know?
Yeah, I get you.
Like,
I
to a
get you.
lot of people, the moment they listen to it and finish the album, they can, like, say, like, it was an instant classic. Like, they'll immediately like it, you know? Whereas a lot of these other albums, it's like people have talked about having to listen to it multiple times in order for it to click with them, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it is gonna deliver, because I mean, when hasn't he delivered, you know? Almost all his albums were critically acclaimed, even that one of like, that was kind of just like unreleased songs, like I think it was called Untitled Unmastered or something like that. Like, even people like love that, you know? So it's like, for an artist as critically acclaimed as him, I expect him to have a great amount of success. And let me actually see something real quick, because the question I want to pose to you, Dom, is how much do you think he sells first week?
Ooh.
Because as everyone knows, that's kind of like the big thing to happen. And the comparisons I'm going to give you, first week, Drake sold 613,000, and Donda by Kanye West sold 309,000.
Really? What?
Yeah. Don't forget, he dropped it on a Sunday, so he didn't get like the whole week, because it repeats on, or the cycle resets on Friday.
Oh, right. Jeez. I feel like, I mean, considering the amount of time and the amount of hype he's going to be bringing up, and the amount of like a marketing he's implementing for this album, I don't know, either in the 400s or the 500s, only because he just might excel with this one. Not only that, but like, if he just, you know, if word of mouth works well and, you know, in his favor, if people start liking the music, and then, you know, more people start liking it, and people start talking start talking to other people about it, I feel like he might get like really good numbers on this one, like really good numbers. I mean, I hope he does, but he, you know, how would you say it? You know, it might go bad. It might go bad.
Yeah, I don't. Let me see. What was To Pimp a Butterfly's first week sales? First week sales for To Pimp a Butterfly, 324K.
300, eh?
Do you think he matches that? Goes a little bit under? Goes over? What's your prediction?
I mean, it should surely go over, right? I mean, he's definitely put a lot of time into this. The amount of hype is pretty crazy. But then again, you know, every song has to be an absolute banger for like numbers to like go over than what his previous albums have gone in that first week.
Yeah, I brought up To Pimp a Butterfly because, you know, it's arguably regarded as his best album, you know. But what about this, Dom? Damn, in its first week, sold 603K.
Jeez.
Do you think Kendrick surpasses that?
To surpass 600,000, jeez.
I'm going to be bold and say I think he does.
Do you think by a large or a small margin?
I think by a small margin. You know, he might get up there to like, I think the number I'll throw out there is around like 615K. I don't think he's going to surpass it by a large margin, but I think he might. I think it's quite possible he surpasses it, because 5 years of hype, he's a pretty big name, you know. He's up there with the Kanyes and Drakes. People probably don't want to say he is, but that's probably due to the fact that he doesn't drop as much. It doesn't have as much of a public presence, which some people might say is why maybe he might not reach that number. But I mean, he got there with Damn, you know, 600K with Damn. I think he could do it again with whatever his new album is. I forget what the new title is.
Oh,
Mr.
whatever.
Morale and the Big Steppers. That's what the album is going to be called.
Yeah. Ooh, man, I hope he does. He does surpass. What I just fear is like people trying to boost the numbers. You know,
Hmm.
uh, like uh, just trying to like. I think people have. Wait, question. Wait, question. How are these numbers tracked again? Like people listening on Spotify, or people like buying the album off like Apple Music, or how?
Yeah, so it's a combination of pure sales and streaming sales. So like the pure sales are kind of like, people buying the album on iTunes, people buying like the album digitally, physical copies, stuff like that, the vinyls that they're going to sell of it I think also count. Maybe I don't know for sure if vinyls count, but like the physical purchasing of it. And then the streaming sales, is the people who stream the album. I forget what the streaming rules are for it to count, because as we discussed like previously, the streaming with artists and the numbers they get is just very confusing at times.
Yeah,
But you gotta think, with all the people that are gonna be streaming this album, and again, like you said, like word of mouth is gonna help spread it, through places like Twitter and Instagram.
yeah.
It's gonna be one of those things of like, oh, these people are listening to it, let me give it a listen too, just to see what everyone's talking about.
Right.
So,
Man,
I don't know. I said he does. Do you think he surpasses damn 603K?
I bet he does. Maybe I want to say a large margin because I want to give as much as in terms of positivity, but it only takes so much just to drive up the numbers, especially when like bigger players have gone in the range from like 500, 600. But considering his last album got that 600,000 mark, I feel like we might maybe even the 700,000. What do you think? 700, 800,000 might be too much, but it's possible. But do you think those numbers are even possible?
It's possible, but I wonder what it's possible depending on how much they're including into it. Are we going to include the YouTube streams into it as well, or all these other platforms like Tidal, or are we just counting, what he gets streams off of Apple and Spotify,
Right.
But I think it's very realistic that he maybe even does blow his previous album out the water and get even higher sales, because again, it's been 5 years of waiting. We all saw the response he got just from announcing it,
True.
and who's to say he doesn't release maybe a single to get the hype up and kind of give people a clue as to what this album is going to sound like. My only thing is, I don't know if he's going to get, I mean, it's not like people really listen to it anyways, but like the radio play, because that's where Drake gets his boost from, his songs are always on the radio.
Right.
His songs are on the radio, they're playing in all these shops. Depending on what Kendrick talks about in this album, I don't think he's going to get that type of like radio play,
Yeah.
Though he talked about a lot of different, like, if you want to say, quote unquote, touchy subjects, that they won't want to play on the radio. Though he kind of touched on a couple of those on Damn, for the most part, there was a lot of like advertisable songs on there, like Damn itself and or no, not Damn itself, Humble and Element,
Right.
like those are very like marketable songs. I can't even tell you how many times Humble probably went platinum.
True.
It actually went 7 times platinum.
7 times.
So yeah, that just goes to show you how marketable that song was.
Yeah.
So I mean, and then I guess this can lead into our main discussion today, because it kind of ties into it. The the topic I proposed to Dom that we talk about is music piracy. Because Dom's bringing up the streaming sales and how those correlate to it. And so, like, the main question to propose is, Dom, do you think in this day and age, can we say that music piracy is dead when we have streaming services such as Spotify that are free and make millions of artists and songs available for free?
I would have to say yes. Privacy has definitely gone downhill at this point in time, especially with how people are getting around like leaks and stuff like that. Which personally, I have no idea how it happens. Only unless there's there's people hiding beneath, working with these artists, and they just happen to have a USB drive that has all the songs and just release them out. But aside from that, in terms of music privacy, considering that everything's just on Spotify and other likes where you don't have to pay nothing, you can hear it for free. It's a bit of an odd slope. Considering you don't have to pay a single cent.
Yeah, because you have places like YouTube and Spotify that make it free to listen. And though these places are free, the artists are still making money off of it, as we mentioned, off the streams. But again, as we examined in our previous episode, way back when, we talked about how the artists don't get paid that much. When we were talking about Kanye's STEM player and how he was gonna put Donda 2 on there because of the whole low payout that they get. They don't make a lot of their revenue from the streams. It's actually from tours and merchandising.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you bring up a good point with the leaks, which I'll get into later, because originally music piracy was very different. Like in the old days, it was a big issue because think about it, the only way you were able to hear songs was either buying the physical copies or the radio.
Yeah.
But that's where sites such as LimeWire came in, where they were able to have the songs digitally there for you to download. And you were able to download them onto CDs, onto your iPods, or your tapes, cassette tapes back in the day, stuff like that. Or there was the traditional methods of people who would pass down their CDs. So I mean, it's I don't know if you would really classify it as pirating, but it's one person buying it and then distributing to other people who they themselves don't have to buy it now.
Right.
Because they're able to burn those songs from one CD onto the other.
True.
And then it's crazy because music piracy sites such as LimeWire actually led to the development of iTunes, because Steve Jobs, saw it as such a crazy thing to have all this music available digitally. So he developed iTunes kind of as a way to reduce that. Well, if people are going to be searching on the internet, as a way to download these songs, if they're gonna look to download these songs, might as well make it available on its own type of platform.
Yeah.
So many of these sites were taken down after lawsuits, and then iTunes was developed. Still have to buy them, at least in the old days before Apple Music and Spotify came around. The only way to get them was to buy them. So people still tried to find ways to download them illegally,
Yeah.
And so it's I don't think, according to some researchers, it's gone down, but there's still ways of people pirating music nowadays. It still exists. And it's probably due to the fact that, there's people that just want to be able to listen to it without having to pay for some type of service to, eliminate ads, eliminate, needing internet to listen to it, and,
right.
do all that without having to pay for it. And so, you kind of ask yourself, how is that going to affect Kendrick's album? But, again, that kind of ties into kind of the next section of this topic. Because, as we're saying, traditional piracy kind of is dead in a sense. As you said, it's there's all these free ways to listen to music. No one's gonna be going out their way to find this stuff, you know, like
Right.
without, because they know they can just listen to it on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, whatever streaming platform they use, SoundCloud even, you know. But
Yeah.
while more traditional piracy in a sense is fading away, I think we're seeing a new form of piracy rise, and that is the leaks of upcoming music or unreleased music. You kind of brought it up, you know, that artists see like their albums or singles or songs get leaked, you know, and it's kind of true. We see a lot of unreleased tracks from artists being uploaded to YouTube, people putting them on Spotify and Apple Music so they can have their music all in one place, you know. And like,
Right.
you know, we see just these whole like songs that haven't been released that maybe only had like a snippet shown, but now here's the whole song being released by leakers, you know. And we've seen it become such an issue where we've seen artists, you know, scrap whole albums ahead of time because the whole album ended up leaking.
Oh yeah.
You know, so like this is kind of a new form of music piracy where stuff that is being planned to release is being released beforehand, and it's not even being released by the artist, you know.
Right.
And this becomes an issue because by the time they release it, well, people have already heard it, you know.
Yeah.
Like I know that was an issue with Juice WRLD's album, you know, was that his latest album, people were like, oh, we've already heard some of these leaks, and it was like, you know, the main argument people had was, well, whose fault is that? You know, a lot of the fans were the ones that went out of the way to find those, to listen to them, to, you know, to listen to it. They were the ones that leaked it themselves, you know. But then that kind of sparked another argument of, well, can you really blame them when the label themselves, you know, because in the case of Juice WRLD, he's passed, he's not in control of his music. The label themselves took so long that people that wanted new music went out and sought new music through the form of unreleased tracks, you know, and leaks. And so, you know, it's like, it kind of poses like this more like bigger topic of, you know, is it okay to do that, you know? Because I think, you know, it's kind of like, you remember we had a discussion about Nintendo and their whole thing with emulations and how they take down a lot of them, you know?
Yeah.
We talked about it, how, you know, I think it's an issue when, you know, like when like in the case of Nintendo, I said when new games like at the time Metroid Dread are getting emulated when they just released, you know? I think that's an issue, but emulating a game from like 30 years ago that's no longer in production, both its system and the game itself, I don't think that's an issue because it's not like Nintendo's providing a way for you to get that game, you know? And it's not like they're making money off of you buying it from a secondhand retailer, you know? Like buying it off of eBay. They're not making money off of that. So similarly, I think it's an issue in the music world when you're leaking stuff that you know is going to release, you know? Like, if this Kendrick Lamar album were to leak, why are you doing it? You know it's going to release. Just wait for the release date, you know? It has a release date. It's promised to come, you know? Obviously, in the cases of, like, someone like Kanye, you know, where you never know when the album's going to release and when he's just going to scrap something, you know? But, you know, for most cases in these artists, you know it's going to drop, you know? So I don't think it's an issue there. Or no, I think it's an issue there where, you know, this stuff is planned to drop, but people are still leaking it, you know? Like, I brought up whole albums being scrapped. I think you remember, I think it was like Playboy Cardi who like, oh no, it was Uzi who scrapped his whole album because, you know, people kept leaking the songs.
Oh, yeah. No, wasn't that Playboy?
I think it was both, actually. They had like different versions of their albums because, you know, people kept leaking their songs and their whole albums. So, you know, I guess I pose it to you. Do you think that's where it becomes an issue?
Yeah. When it damages like the artist's like reputation in terms of like, because sometimes these leaks aren't always the final product. It's always like usually a work in progress. Same thing with like the Donda leaks. Like some of the songs were like not yet finished, so there were still final tweaks to be made. but in general, it might hurt the artists themselves because it might not show the entire full potential of their work, and or how would you say it? Like if it's like a couple of songs from an entire album that'll leak, the hype kind of like begins to slowly die down because that means people are not able to hear it before the grand major release is meant to happen, where everyone as a whole is able to listen to a specific album. But at times, how would you say it? It's. I mean, not at times. I mean, usually it's just not a good thing. Knowing that an artist is about to drop an album, and people can't wait to just hear it. I would just say it brings the whole piracy and music privacy in general to be how would you say it? To be over proportionalized considering the amount of technology we have in this day and age, to like somehow find ways to like spread music quickly or find like leaks from artists and other such, which kind of like how would you say it? How would you say it? To basically bring like privacy to music to be dead, essentially. Artists themselves cannot hide their music from the public, considering that people are gonna just try to find leaks as much as they can. And not only that, it probably hurts like sales and such, since they're literally listening to the music for free. They could, quickly create a bias on whether to decide whether to buy the album or to stream the music, or not.
Yeah.
And yeah, now that I think about it, I have from this point on, and considering the previous history we have with like Lil Uzi and Playboi Carti of them, completely discarding entire albums just because it's already been leaked, it damages either the reputation or like the mental state of the artist, because now they have to create a whole entire album because the public has already heard it practically, either through the leaks or just people just trying to release it as much as they can, and it just becomes spread and of the such. But I mean, the question is like, what can you do, considering what people can do these days, or not only that, but like people like in the industry trying to release music beforehand, either for like a lump sum of money or of the such. There's like I'm not sure how you say it. It's not whistleblowers, but you know what I mean. People just like, in the background, they work with the artists, and they just happen have to have that USB drive and just spread it on to the internet. Now everybody knows.
Yeah.
But yeah. Personally, I think it's just. I mean, it's unfortunate. It's a bad thing. It's unfortunate, but I mean, we gotta live with it. Artists have to live with it. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, they kind of have to find a way to work around it, and
right.
Yeah, so,
there hasn't been. Oh, my bad.
You were saying?
No, I just want to say if there hasn't been any Kendrick leaks yet.
That's good to hear. But
no, I'm not questioning if there has been any Kendrick leaks.
I don't know for sure. I mean, I know there's like leaks of like older stuff, that maybe people heard a snippet of a song and then it never released, so they leaked it. I don't.
Oh, cool.
I haven't heard anything about any leaks for his new album yet, but I will say, just like the Nintendo emulation thing, I think with music piracy, there's two sides to this coin. So I think it is wrong to pirate the music, like we said, that's upcoming to release, because it damages the artist or earnings, and stuff like, well, maybe they have to create a whole new album in the process now because of people leaking it.
Right.
And I don't get why they do that, because in turn they hurt themselves, because something that was guaranteed to release now doesn't get released, so you don't get official versions of those leaks, because a lot of those times those leaks are terrible quality. They're not as good and mixed and mastered as they would have been had they officially released, but because people were impatient, they now are stuck with those low quality versions, because now the artist is like, well, okay, now I'm not finishing those. You guys don't get nothing. So you're only screwing yourself over even further by doing that,
Yeah, exactly.
But again, there's two sides to the coin, and that is, and again, this is kind of a question I'm going to pose to you and like an overall topic to pose for discussion. What do you do in the case of the artists themselves not wanting to release a song, the label not wanting to release a song, or the artist passing and thus being unable to control what songs get released? In those cases, or cases similar to that, is it okay for the music to be leaked then for others to listen to?
Interesting.
Because, for example, there's sometimes songs where, the artist wants to drop it, but the label won't clear it for release, Like, for example, Nav had a song with Uzi on it, but Uzi's label wouldn't clear it to release, so Nav had to release it without Uzi's verse. And, people didn't like it as much without the Uzi verse, and so they started leaking that song,
Right.
Or like I mentioned in the case, probably the biggest, the one artist who's seen the biggest amount of leaks, Juice WRLD, he's passed, and he has like a catalog of over of thousands of songs, and he's not here to control what gets released, how quickly it gets released,
Right.
And the label themselves, kind of take a while to release it. So it's like in those cases, you kind of think to yourself, is it okay to release it? Because now you no longer have like that moral obligation of, well, the artist isn't making money off of it. Well, he's passed. And sure, if the money is going to like his family, you kind of feel bad. But at the same time, people's argument is, again, well, the label's not doing anything,
Right.
They're not releasing any of these songs that fans have been requesting for the longest time, So it kind of just poses that question, is it okay at that point? Where it's stuff that isn't promised to release, or that was promised, but now it's no longer being released, Or there's no intention to release it anytime, either soon or at all,
True.
Because this is the modern age of piracy, is stuff like leaks. And so you kind of ask yourself, is this all okay? Especially when we have services like YouTube where this stuff can just be uploaded for free. And sure, the labels can go and search for it and take it down, but as we see, a lot of them don't really go through that effort. They just leave these videos up and allow them to be listened to for free because, again, sometimes they just don't have the intention to release it. Sometimes Juice WRLD's label will delete certain leaks, and that gives people the impression that they're deleting the leaks because, or like getting the leaks taken down through DMCA strikes because they have the intention to release it soon. But so it's like, what does that mean for the tracks that aren't getting taken down? And it's like people are kind of forced to listen to those leaks and, in a sense, find those drop boxes or mega files with the MP3s that are available to download so that people can have them as local files on Spotify and Apple,
Yeah.
And you kind of ask yourself, is it wrong at that point? Because sure, probably by law, it's wrong to, pirate the music like that. But in this new day and age of leaks, it's like, can you really punish them for it when it's made such available on sites like YouTube, where they can't really be punished for it,
Right.
Like, they can't go out of their way to punish you for listening to something for free on YouTube,
Right.
So what do you think now? Like, I've kind of been rambling on. What do you think? Do you think in this case it's not wrong and it's a case like the Nintendo emulation where it's wrong in one case, okay in the other? Or do you just think it's outright wrong?
I mean, considering the platforms we have with the free Spotify streaming, and as well as with the with the YouTube stuff, and then considering people, how would you say, leak, with leaks online. I mean, you can't really punish them, as how with you said, you can't really punish those who just listen for free because they don't want to pay a single dollar. Then again, regardless of like all of the bad things that happen, right? I mean, money still at the end of the day is going to fall into the pockets of the artist. Sure, they might lose out on some money, considering there might people, watch either YouTube or like Spotify or like Apple Music with like, the ad-free listening. If they pay for the subscription and stuff like that. I mean, the leaks and stuff as such in general might hurt the final product per se, considering that pretty much if a song has been like, let's say it's the best, like a flagship song of an album has been leaked, that means a perspective is left on the rest of the album per se, right?
Yeah.
So if that in itself damages the album, like it creates too much high of an expectation, it might be a bad thing, creating a sort of, I guess, motive to push for punishment, like with DMCA strikes.
Yeah.
And other stuff. But aside from DMCA strikes, that's only hurting the person who's just uploading the video. That's not hurting the grand majority of who's already listened to the music and have already created some sort of bias or like some sort of like a how would you say it, like a reaction to it. People have reaction videos on YouTube and other such.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I don't think it affects the listeners. It just only affects those people that uploaded, that leaked it, because they're the ones that are distributing it.
Yeah.
So they're the ones that are punishable, not just the people who per se are probably listening to it, downloading it, from those people who distributed it. Because again, it's like, it's just kind of like this moral dilemma where it's like, you can't really fault them. They just want to listen to the music, and it's not their fault that, in some cases the artists, labels, whatever, aren't releasing it, or the artist isn't here to release it. Right. That kind of creates another moral dilemma where it's like, well, if the artist didn't want it released, then, we shouldn't be listening to it, because maybe they didn't like it, they didn't think it was perfect. But like, again, it's kind of a two-sided coin where it's like, yeah, maybe the artist didn't like it, but that doesn't mean the fans themselves don't end up liking it and want to hear it released.
Right.
And so, I mean, and like, I personally think it's similar to the Nintendo emulation situation where it's just a two-sided coin, or it's just there's two sides to the coin, It's wrong when you're leaking the artist, like how you mentioned, like, imagine if an artist's lead single leaks, and so it kills the hype for the album because they were relying on that leak, or they're relying on that single to build hype. But now, since everyone heard it from a leak, when they release it, it doesn't get as much attention, and then, it makes their album struggle. I think that is wrong. But in cases where, an artist is passed, or, the artists themselves or the label themselves isn't wanting to release certain songs, you can't fault the people for then seeking options such as leaks, It's about supply and demand. And when there's a demand and you aren't supplying it, don't be upset when your audience, your customers go off to a different source, to a different provider who's supplying them for their demand.
Right.
Like like Tyler the Creator has such a big fan base. Why? Because he properly gives the fans what they want, He releases albums like every 2 years. He doesn't keep them waiting for too long, He gives himself adequate time to create his albums and then gives it to the people. Versus all these other artists who will tease all these songs but then never release them. And then they get mad when the leaks happen, when it's like, well, you weren't supplying the demand. So I think in that case it's not wrong.
Right. Interesting.
But with about 30 seconds left, I guess we'll close out here, Dom. Sorry if you had anything else to say.
I got nothing else to say.
But with that being said, thank you all for joining us for another episode of Season 2 of the Rule 34 podcast. As always, I've been your host, Jack, joined by my fellow co-hosts,
Dominic Castillo.
And as always, if it exists, we have an opinion on it. Thank you, and we'll see y'all in the next episode.